So tasty.
Chai is usually the first
And
thing
chai is
you.
the first thing that you learn. So yeah, that happened, and I think I made a pretty decent cup of tea, and then I was like the tea person in the family. They were
I drank tea as a kid, like at my grandparents' house and stuff like that. I never was really a big tea drinker. In my late teens, early 20s, I drank coffee.
and you also was not allowed to have chai. That was
Yeah.
also a thing. Caffeine is like a no-no, right? Like growing
Yeah.
up. So I was given chai wala doodh, which was something that I don't know. Like it was the closest thing.
Where does tea sit in your life?
I love tea. I've got I've got a teapot that is my pride and joy. I have all my like.
We construct our identities when and how it's being shaped by family, society, internal and external people while you're having a tea.
Like blues, sort of abstract blues guy, and he has several songs about tea, including the Tea Song, which is on his first album. My heart is breaking and my nerves are shaking. That's just because of all the tea I've taken. It's about him sort of like drinking tea alone by himself and waiting in his house, and I don't care that she's left me just so long as the cupboard's full of tea. That one really.
interesting point, because also tea can be like so many different things. It's like you could have a matcha green tea that's like super buzzy. It's just a process, isn't it?
In a culture that everything, every daily activity, conversation, gossips or not gossips, they come over the table. You gather around.
Now I can't even make a decent cup of tea anymore. Like now, it's
Mine are
just
really
my
bad these
proportions
days.
are just so off.
I was thinking like, where are the people? Because like, of course, humans are touched by tea.
Where are the people?
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I'm right here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I actually felt very present as I thought that, so that was nice.
It's time for you to take a pause and just reflect on things. It's one way of looking at it, but for me it was more of how you start to reflect on it and like shape yourself by hearing stories of others.
It might be really useful, which I guess in this case, with how the vast number of like chain of events that you were trying to look at is helpful and incredibly powerful AI to be able to be like, you know, divide this into so many parts that I can then represent by drawings or something.
I guess it's the same way that it knows anything, isn't it? It's like it knows it as much as, I guess all knowledge is so sort of like, all knowledge is based on the information that we receive, and in some ways that's the same thing that AI does.
Well, I have like mixed feelings. I don't feel like it diminishes it, the meaning of it. But I feel a bit sad that we came to that point.
I think of more organic things. I wouldn't look at it as something more than just a tool that you used.
Well, in the sense, yeah, like, but I think the problem with AI is like something holistic, maybe, of like understanding something in it as a whole, or as like the sum of parts being greater than the whole, which is one of those like classic things we talk about for like a human being more than its parts, right? And that's what makes it like conscious.
Thread of information that is just there. I mean, at some point you can be sad about it, but I think the way you exploit it is changing.
The entire argument of Next Nature magazine is that technology is the next nature. Technology is not a separate part of nature. It's just a natural extension of the fact that nature gave us reasoning and ability to make science and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's interesting. I also think that part of the, I think that humans generally have a strange sort of distinction of themselves as being sort of other than nature,
Yeah,
generally, anyway.
that's true. That is.
Like, rather than seeing it all as part of the same.
How true do you think that is?
I think that's very true.
That humans are separate?
Oh
from
no.
nature? Okay.
I think that we're all part of the same. We're just, you know, it's like the things that we would say. The things that we would say would separate us from nature. Things like, I don't know, off the top of my head, like civilization, for example. You could look at like the way that ants behave and say that they
Exactly of ants. Yeah.
It's like we're just a different version of a creature.
And in some ways, we're not even smarter.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like that.
Ask an AI to relate things by specific parameters, and it might do it. So you could give it 3 objects and say, how are these related via T? Or how are these related via sports, right? And it might be different things. But, you know, and it will perform the function that you give it based on like inputs and outputs. But, like me or you, when we look at this table, this like half-painted concentric circle madness, I make it whole by experiencing it.
Where do you think your body ends and another body begins? Like, what's the boundary between saying this is you and this is another thing?
I think that's a really complex question because I think that we think of ourselves as single organisms that we're interact.
Yeah.
So at that point anyway, it's sort of already, it breaks down because we can only function because of the organisms that we live in our gut and on our skin and like
Yeah.
all of those different things.
So you think there is no boundary?
I think we don't know what we are.
Okay. Okay.
I think that the boundary is sort of like wrapped up in our consciousness, but we don't really
Hmm.
know what consciousness is.
Yeah, that's true.
But in terms of body and how we embody, how we exist in space, I think that the boundaries are a lot more blurred than people believe. And that it's part of this, like, again, this sort of like human ego thing of being like, this is me and I am me and my life is important. Whereas actually it's like a multitude of lives.
Not doing bad. But bad is a concept.
That's the difference between a bird building a nest and a human building a
Yeah.
hut.
So I guess like destroying something for the sake of something. I think that's not that's the boundary where
But nature destroys things all the time.
yeah, it destroys, but it's like it's the way of the nature. I mean, people still rebuild, right? Even if the nature destroys, because people adapt as well as the nature adapts. But it's about the scarcity of resources. It will not happen continuously. At some point, the magnitude of it will change. So
So what is natural is something that is suspended in a give and take relationship with something else, where it takes something and it takes something back.
I think it's it was always like that since the day one. I mean, within even natural ecosystem, there's a prey and there's the hunter, right?
Yeah.
And it's
But
not
the
like
hunter also tends to help control the population
Exactly.
of the prey and
Yeah.
therefore the availability of food for the prey.
exactly. I mean, that's the relationship. That's the conscious, not conscious, but that's the relationship of the give and take. You're giving because I mentioned the human will die too, but out of our body grows the grass. So that's how.
The highest form of spirit is reason. That like in the contemporary world, particularly in the developed world, there's all sorts of like sort of neo-spiritualities that have been around for like 150 years, you know.
Yeah, they just repackaged.
Yeah. But like since the sort of the colonization of the known world, and even before that, things like theosophy, an interest in Buddhism and Hinduism and yoga, vegetarianism, like romanticism of European cultures, like classical culture and like neo-paganism, like you see of like what I would call Wookiees.
That's a problem. This is the actual kettle that you get at the roadside shops, by the way. I got it like
really?
flown in from India.
Oh,
And these are the kind of conversations you end up having with strangers there. It's like almost everybody, like, they're usually situated around offices and things like that. So when there's like a break, there'll be literally 40 people that will come and you get them in teeny tiny breakups like that.
I like how many different cultures have a relationship to tea.
people think that the best use of AI is like a very targeted, very precise
Yeah.
prompt that it cannot sort of interpret in any way. So like really controlling it. I kind of took the exact opposite approach. So
I like it.
if you give
Okay.
AI the prompt of tea culture, for example, you have no idea what it's gonna like pull out and give you.
Yeah, it gives you everything.
It will give you everything. So for me, it was kind of about using that like randomness in like a lot of ways. So it's the same prompt at the end, which is generated, but it's like very different profiles.
Biology shows us that humans aren't reasoning, and that we're like we don't think for ourselves and we don't have free will, but like we produce the scientific method through having rational thinking and free will, in order to then tell ourselves that we don't have that.
Makes no sense.
But it's very confusing.
How do you feel after this issue? Like after?
Nice and calm.
Nice. That is what he does. That is exactly like the effect I wanted to have.
Drinking tea, chatting about nature is a lovely thing to do.
Tea does lend itself well to that specifically.